Like it or not, starting around age 30, your body will begin losing muscle. It's science, and it's called sarcopenia. And after 40, it only accelerates. But here's what most people get wrong. We have control over how quickly our body loses muscle. And the problem isn't age. It's that most of us are still stuck training just like we're 25, doing heavy barbell work at all costs, riding through injuries, and chasing volume just for volume's sake. That approach can and should have an expiration date. This week on Stronger Weekly, we cover what actually changes in your body as you age, what you need to stop doing immediately as it relates to training, and we give you a smarter approach to building muscle for the long haul. Welcome to Stronger Weekly, brought to you by Purist Nutrition. I'm your host, Jesse Karajat. Thank you so much for being here today in February. We're about midway through the month as I'm recording this, deep into the winter. If you've been showing up to the gym and keeping those New Year's resolutions going, despite the cold and dark mornings and crazy weather across the country, you have my respect. That is discipline. Good for you. This week, we are talking about training into our 40s and beyond. And I'll start by saying that most of what we're going to cover in our deep dive on that topic is probably applicable whether you're in your 20s, 30s, or 40s, but it's specifically for beneficial for 40-year-olds, okay? Or should I say 40 and older? And I'll start here. If you've spent even a minute on social media and the algorithms kind of got your number, you are bombarded with fitness influencers in general, but specifically for me at 41 years old, fitness influencers who claim to be experts in staying fit as we age. And they oftentimes will have completely conflicting information. So it's confusing out there, and it's kind of hard to know how to change or if you should even change your fitness and training protocols. And then lately, in the past couple of years, you've got this exploding sort of industry around health span and longevity. You got people like Peter Attia and Andrew Huberman and books and all these things coming out about how to live longer, healthier, and touting all sorts of new science and studies that help us live longer. And it's overwhelming. At the end of the day, what choices can we make every day? It's really what food do we put in our bodies? What supplements do we put in our bodies? How do we train? How do we sleep? And you have to make smart choices. And with it being so overwhelming, it can be hard. So if there's a hope of this episode is that we can help, I can help you kind of curate and distill all that information down into practical guidance that you can start applying tomorrow. And if you're a guy like me, you love your tried and true strength training and your cardio split, and you see all these influencers out there doing all their HIIT and their kettlebell complexes, whatever that is, and high rocks and climbing ropes into the rafters of some random gym. And you start to think like, should I be doing that? But do I have to change what I love? And the answer is no, you don't. You don't have to change what you love. But if you're near 40, in your 40s, or maybe older, and your goal is to keep getting stronger, maybe maintain the lean muscle mass that you have, minimize your injuries, get more mobile and flexible, and just set yourself up for a long, healthy life as you age, this is the episode for you, and it's why we made it. We're going to unpack and summarize the latest science and give you practical training recommendations that you can actually stick with it. We're going to ignore the fads and the chaos of social media and just give you the stuff that you need. But before we dive in, here are your weekly health and fitness updates. Your first health and fitness headline: the World Health Organization has released 3 major reviews this week on GLP-1 weight loss drugs, and the findings confirm what millions of Americans already know. These medications do work. Tirzepatide, sold as Mounjaro, and Zepbound showed an average weight reduction of 16% over 12 to 18 months of use. Semaglutide, the ingredient in Ozempic and Wegovy, delivered around 11%, but researchers are urging caution. Most early trials were funded by the drug makers themselves. Long-term safety data remains limited, and common side effects like nausea do persist. Quote, "We need more data on long-term effects, particularly in lower-risk individuals," said co-lead researcher Ava Madrid. Semaglutide's patent expires this year, which could finally bring prices down for Americans. But About 1 in 8 Americans have now tried a GLP-1 medication. Next up, a new study on longevity is making waves. So a study published in the Journal of Science is challenging decades of scientific consensus around human longevity. Researchers found that genetics account for 55% of differences in human lifespan, more than double previous estimates of 10 to 25%. Biophysicist Ben Shinhar at Israel's Weizmann Institute reanalyzed twin data going back to the 1800s, separating out deaths from external causes like accidents from those caused by internal aging. He says, quote, "It's 50% nature and 50% nurture. We're used to that concept, and now we know that longevity is the same way," end quote. So this finding could spark new research into longevity genes and potential drug targets. Next up, good news for all you coffee drinkers out there. Harvard researchers have linked moderate coffee and tea consumption to lower dementia risks. So a study published Monday in JAMA analyzed over 131,000 participants following up for up to 43 years. They found that those who drank 2 to 3 cups of caffeinated coffee daily had a, get this, 18% lower risk of late-stage dementia. 1 to 2 cups of tea showed a 14% reduction. And here's the key finding: decaffeinated coffee showed no benefit at all, suggesting caffeine itself may be the neuroprotective factor at play. Lead author Dr. Daniel Wang cautioned that the effect size is small, but added, quote, "Caffeinated coffee or tea can be one piece of the puzzle. 2/3 of Americans already drink coffee daily. Average consumption, 3 cups. I don't know what this means if you're like me, having 4 or 5 servings of caffeine a day. I don't know. I hope that's a good thing for me, but this is definitely encouraging for regular coffee drinkers. Your next health and fitness headline: new research from Duke University may explain why exercise alone fails to produce significant long-term weight loss. Researchers analyzed 14 studies involving 450 people and found that our bodies compensate for exercise by reducing energy spent elsewhere, things like cellular repair and other internal processes. On average, only 72% of exercise calories actually translated into a higher daily caloric burn. The remaining 28% was offset. Quote from lead researcher Herman Ponser, he said, "In terms of creating an energy deficit to lose weight, diet is by far the bigger lever that we can pull." But here's the twist: strength training appears to buck this trend. Muscle repair itself requires additional energy, making resistance training more effective for weight management than cardio alone. So takeaway here: combine strength training with cardio and proper nutrition, and that's the magic recipe for sustained weight loss. Last up, and speaking of strength training, a new study from Tel Aviv University found that resistance training during calorie-restricted dieting delivers the highest quality weight loss for both men and women. So researchers analyzed data from hundreds of participants aged 20 to 75 years old. And while total weight loss was similar across groups, those doing strength training plus cardio lost more fat while preserving or gaining muscle mass, which of course is key as we age. They also showed greater reductions in waist circumference, which is a key marker of metabolic health. Quote from lead researcher, Professor Yaftuch Gepner, he said, "Weight loss should not be measured only by kilograms. Strength training is a vital tool for anyone who wants to lose weight in a healthy, safe, and sustainable way." Of course, another feather in the cap of strength training in general. Of course, we know if you are strength training, you could gain muscle mass, which could kind of fool you because the scale and your weight could go up while you're losing body fat. But once more, strength training plus cardio plus nutrition is the way to go. And that's it for your weekly health and fitness update. Now, just a quick word from our sponsor, and let's get into this week's feature. All right, let's be honest. You're probably not a professional athlete with a personal chef and unlimited recovery time. If you're like me, you're hitting the gym at 5 a.m. before work or squeezing in training between meetings, just trying to stay consistent while life keeps throwing you curveballs. That's exactly who Purist Nutrition was made for. Purist keeps it simple.
NSF certified supplements with minimal, clean ingredients that actually taste good. No artificial ingredients and no proprietary blends where you're guessing what you're taking. Just premium actives like CreaPure, the purest creatine on the planet, whey isolate protein that is US sourced and easy on the stomach, and hydration that keeps you going without all the extra sugar or sodium. Whether you're a parent juggling kids and training, or just someone who refuses to compromise on quality, Purist Nutrition fits your routine. Built for tomorrow, science-backed, tested and trusted by athletes, and most importantly, effective. Visit puristnutrition.com to see the full lineup of quality supplements. That's puristnutrition.com, because your nutrition should work as hard as you do. So, welcome back. Let's do this. Let's dive in. So, training 40 plus, right? So how do you train 40 and beyond? So we'll start with this. I am 41 years old. Shout out to all my 40 pluses out there. And if you're listening, my 20 somethings, my mid to late 30 somethings, 50 and above, whatever you are, shout out to you. Thanks for being here. I've been training since I was 20 years old. Basically, when I joined the Marine Corps at 19, once I got in there, got into the fleet, I started really just hanging around other Marines and started lifting and really just fell in love with it. And I've been passionate about it ever since. And I have tried, it's been 21 years. I have tried many, many things over those 2+ decades. I started with kind of your classic men's health bro split, the Arnold Schwarzenegger stuff, chest, back, shoulders, legs, arms, right? I've done that. I've trained for raw strength just to see what my body's capable of, and just dedicated seasons to strength training. I've trained hypertrophy over the years. I've done CrossFit, sprint triathlons, mixed martial arts. I mean, I've really done a lot. I've weighed 215 pounds and deadlifted 315 pounds for 20 consecutive reps. And I've cut down to 175 for a photo shoot for when I was thinking about starting a gym, and did some training and things like that. It's an old man thing to say, but I'm going to say it. I've sort of seen it all. And now at 41, I just don't care to keep switching things up anymore. I don't want to do it. There's tried and true stuff out there that works. It feels like, especially on social media, everybody's trying to come up with the next big thing. And I am freaking over it, right? I am over it. I don't want fitness to run my life. I don't want to keep questioning it. And now I'm training not just to be strong and feel good, but it's to really want to live longer, healthier. I mean, everyone says it's kind of cliche. I want to be able to play with my grandkids. I do. I definitely do. But I also just don't want to be in pain. I want to be happy for the next couple decades. And part of being happy is being fit, feeling good, and looking good. So this episode, as much as it is for my audience, it's also for me to share. And the research leading up to recording this kind of validates a lot of the things that I'm already doing. And I really want to talk about it to help other people just find clarity and to feel confident in the training that they choose. So what do I want? What am I after? And what would I argue that everyone should be after as you age is you want to maintain the muscle mass that you've built. You want to build new muscle mass if possible. And you want to, I think, stay lean, relatively lean year round. Like the whole bulking and cutting thing should be a thing of the past in general, but especially by the time you're 40 something. And I just want to look great and I want to feel great, which means to feel great, you can't be injured. You can't be in pain. I don't want to be in chronic pain, especially if it's because of my own choices and how I'm lifting, overdoing it in the gym and whatnot, because that's a quality of life thing. And most importantly, and I think this needs to be the priority as we age, we should want to have a healthy heart and a healthy body so that you can live longer. You just want to live longer and healthier. What's the point of looking amazing for a small portion of your life and then aging and feeling the consequences because of your training and, God forbid, some of the supplements and some of the things that you put in your body like steroids and whatnot? So today we're going to cut through all the noise and just talk about exactly what works as far as training goes as we enter our 40s and beyond. And I thought we'd start with what's actually happening in your body as you age. No sugarcoating. not avoidable. This is just the truth. There is something called sarcopenia. Again, that's sarcopenia, and it's real. What is that? It is the reality and the fact that we all, as humans, lose muscle as we get older. But how much muscle you lose and when you start losing are very much under your control. And that should be good news to anybody listening. The best defense against sarcopenia, again, losing muscle as we age, is to build as much muscle as you can and then work every day and work hard and smart to retain it. If you haven't been strength training for decades, it's okay. You can start now. But if you have, we're going to talk about the best way to maintain that muscle. Now, exercise choice is critical as you enter your 40s. Why? Your connective tissues have already started losing some of their what's called elasticity. Your joints are less mobile than you're used to be. And frankly, it's more likely that you'll get injured, especially if you've been training for a while. You have more tread on the tires. And that's why your exercise choices are critical. The wrong ones could damage your joints and the right ones can strengthen them. And more on that in a little while. But last kind of piece here is that injuries are more and more common. And I think that's common sense and intuitive. There are no easy injuries to bounce back from. But as we age, it just gets harder and harder to bounce back from injuries, which is why how you train is so important. And then the next piece, recovery takes longer, right? We have to be very intentional if we are going to be training to make sure that we're allowing adequate time to recover. And consistency is absolutely the most important aspect of training as we age. And let's get into exactly what to do. And I'll call this smart training or intelligent training. Here are, to start us, 4 fundamentals. And most of these recommendations can and should be applied well before we get to 40. Number 1, you have to cover your basic movement patterns every single week. You should do at least 2 of these exercises in each of these 6 categories. And this ensures that you'll have well-rounded, bulletproof training. Number 1, a horizontal push movement. Think push-ups, bench press, and even flies. Number 2, a horizontal pulling movement. Think about rows and variations of rows. Number 3, a vertical push movement. So think of things like overhead presses. That can be with dumbbells or with a barbell. A vertical pull. These are things like chin-ups, pull-ups, lat pull-downs, and other variations. Next up, number 5, a squat pattern of some kind. So these are things like Bulgarian split squats, lunges, regular squats, even leg presses. And then lastly, a hinge pattern of some kind, deadlifts, back extensions, GHD raises. So again, number 1 principle here, you have to cover all of your basic movement patterns that you see in life and inside the gym. And those are horizontal push, horizontal pull, vertical push, vertical pull, squat pattern, and hinge patterns. Number 2, we should be focusing on both compound and isolation exercises. Everyone agrees that great programs, regardless of what decade you're in, are built around compound multi-joint exercises. Things like squats, lunges, deadlifts, presses, rows. But as we age, isolation movements, curls, tricep press downs, flies, lateral raises are just as important. Older lifters should actually do more isolation work. And there are people in the social media world that will disagree with that. I disagree with them. First, unlike compound movements, isolation movements don't consume a ton of energy. They're not as taxing on your central nervous system. You can push yourself harder and recover faster. Isolation exercises are perfect for those times when you just want to crush a couple sets to failure. It's not safe, and this is key. Training to failure has benefits, and you should do that moderately. You shouldn't train every single exercise, every single set to failure, but it has tons of benefits, but it's just not safe to take heavy compound lifts to failure, and it completely drains you. And that's why isolation exercises are so helpful. Another reason they're helpful is because it really, really helps with a deep mind-muscle connection. I know that sounds kind of far out there, kind of a crunchy granola, right? But more and more research is coming out on the importance of feeling a contraction. And you can go inside the muscle and actually feel how hard it's working when you're using machines or isolation exercises, which are things that you cannot do with, say, like a heavy squat or bench press. Be honest, just think about this for a second. If you've trained before, which exercises can you actually feel a contraction in your muscles or feel them better, right? Look at your lower body. A barbell back squat or a leg extension, right? If we were to look at our chest, our upper pushing muscles, do you feel more of a contraction in a barbell bench press or in something like a cable fly? I mean, the answer is, it's obvious. You'd be lying if you said you felt more of a contraction in your quadriceps during a barbell back squat. Contractions and feeling the muscle move is important. It recruits muscle fibers, and ultimately it helps you to grow. So a ideal training program for any decade, but in your 40s in particular, is to have a lower emphasis while not neglecting heavier compound movements so that you can build strength, but do start to focus on and appreciate the value of isolation exercises and machines because they are helpful as well. And the last reason isolation exercises are helpful as we age is they absolutely help to shore up and kind of fortify any vulnerable joints with a very minimal risk of injury. Another fundamental, not what a lot of people like to do in the gym, but you can focus on and should focus on moderate weights and moderate rep ranges. And I know I've fallen victim to this. It's a thrill to kind of push yourself on a 1 rep max just to see how strong you are. I mean, let's face it, it can be fun. I totally get it. And there's value in raw strength. But once you're past 40, there's way too much risk for basically minimal rewards in terms of improving your physique at that age, right? So raw strength does help increase the load or the weight for your moderate hypertrophy work, but this is a risk reward thing. Where should you invest your time? So my advice is to switch to workouts that demand no fewer than 6 reps per set. Most of your work as you're training, strength training, should be in the 8 to 15 rep range. And sometimes you can even go as high as 25 for the old pump, as they say, because you'll get better muscle growth in those ranges with less risk to your joints and easier recovery. And that's what we're after in this decade, right? And, a common misconception, progressive overload, it's tried and true and it works. And everybody should be week over week, month over month, trying to add difficulty and complexity to all of their lifts. That's progressive overload. You can't grow if you're not doing that. But a common, I think, error, especially in the younger generations, is that they think that progressive overload, that increasing challenge, always needs to come from heavier weights and harder movements, which is not true. You can tax your muscles and force them to adapt by changing other variables, such as your total volume, meaning how much overall weight, even if it's higher reps and sets, how much overall weight did you move that week versus the previous week, versus say how much load or weight were you able to add on the bar. So I think that's a common misconception. I think moderate weights, moderate reps, all those things are extremely valuable to avoid injury, and they can be just as helpful as something like raw strength.
Let's be honest, most of us don't have a private gym, a full-time trainer, or hours every day to lift. If you're like me, you don't even have time to commute to a local gym. You're training early in the morning or carving out 40 minutes between work, kids, and everything else competing for your time. And when fitness matters that much to your well-being and your health, you've got to have home fitness equipment that's as strong and reliable as you are. That is exactly why I use Rep Fitness. Rep is built for people who train with purpose, people who need high-quality, reliable equipment engineered for real strength. Designed right here in Colorado, USA, Rep Fitness provides racks, benches, bars, and plates that offer commercial-grade durability without commercial gym prices. Premium materials, smart engineering, and fair pricing. Whether you're outfitting your very first garage gym or upgrading your current setup to match where you want to go with your training, Rep makes gear that keeps up with your life and your goals. Visit repfitness.com to see their full lineup: racks, benches, bars, plates, conditioning tools, and everything you need to build a home gym that works as hard as you do. That's repfitness.com.
And just a fourth principle, we need to, as best we can, avoid what I'll call risky and dangerous type exercises. It's fashionable these days to say there are no bad exercises. There's lots of people out there, again, in social media that are saying, oh, age is just a number. You should be out here doing all these crazy things. But when you're over 40, there are worse movements that should be avoided. And let's talk about some of those movements. So the first one, try to avoid or do it very moderately, is what I'll call ballistic exercises. So think things like kipping pull-ups, Olympic style lifts for like super high reps or heavy loads, even like box jumps, plyometrics, maybe sprints can be included, but maybe should be avoided. I personally, for the first time, tore my calf muscle doing sprints. It absolutely sucked. It was depressing, but it was definitely a sign of just wear and tear, right? And when I think about something like sprints, should I substitute them for something like an assault bike where I can get my heart rate up just as high where I want it without the potential of tearing a muscle or injuring myself? So ballistic exercise is definitely something you want to avoid. You want to avoid anything, particularly around your shoulders, that is mechanically risky and known to result in injury. So think things like heavy weighted dips, anything behind the neck like presses or pull downs, upright rows with a barbell where your hands are locked in this kind of awkward position. But anything that structurally, mechanically compromises your joints should be avoided, especially if there are alternative movements that don't have that same level of risk, but you can still target the muscles that you're looking for. This one, I'll probably get a lot of hate even from my friends for this, but heavy barbell lifts, especially think like low bar back squats with a barbell, conventional deadlifts. There's such better alternatives out there that are mechanically more sound, such as a trap bar deadlift, barbell good mornings. These types of movements are increasingly stressful on the bodies for older generations and just people with less responsive muscles and maybe some more tread on the tires with their joints, right? Another movement, heavy tricep extensions, like things like skull crushers. Elbow injuries are so common as we age, and they are incredibly hard and take a long time to actually heal from. So just some things to avoid there. And I don't want to be one of those internet gurus who says that every lifter must stop doing certain things by 40. It's hard to create an episode here that is applicable to everyone. There's so many variables that matter here, like how long have you been lifting? Do you have previous injuries? But generally speaking, avoiding dangerous movements should be something that we all consider. All right, so with those fundamentals in place, now let's talk about common mistakes that people make, not taking the advice that I just gave. Mistake number one, I think people often will disregard speed and power. So power is your ability to generate force quickly, and power and elasticity in your tendons diminishes so fast after 40. I don't care who you are, assuming you're a natural bodybuilder, right? Natural trainer. And speed and power has more real world applications than you think. So explosive training should be part of your program, but not with Olympic lifts or box jumps. Think about things like explosive push-ups. You can do squat jumps. I had a guest on this show that talked, he's an MMA coach, a world-renowned MMA coach, and he talked about the incredible value of something as simple as skipping rope as a 4 to 5 minute warm-up 4 times per week every time you train does wonders for elasticity and speed and even power. And I've implemented that myself, and I just feel so much more athletic and agile, even like getting up off the floor, things like that. You could look at kettlebell swings, which are safe and effective, assuming you do it with good form, medicine ball throws, cable wood chops. Safe speed and power work is something that people often neglect as they age, and they shouldn't. So that's mistake number one. Mistake number two, you still lift too heavy. Somewhat redundant here. We talked on it, but I want to emphasize this point. Yes, you can still touch big weights from time to time, but building your entire routine around lifting the heaviest load possible, not good for you. You need to drop the ego, focus on volume, range of motion, and contraction. That's quality over quantity, right? Again, volume, range of motion, and contraction. And remember, moderate loads, moderate rep ranges, and consistent progress are key. That's how you use progressive overload via volume, not just raw intensity and heavy weights. And finally, mistake number 3, and it's probably the biggest one, is neglecting your cardio, your engine, if you will. Remember, we should be training to live longer and perform, and you want to be strong. I get it. But for an efficient, healthy body, you need a cardiovascular component to your training. So one factor that we haven't talked about, along with diminished muscle strength and power as we age, your metabolism also slows down as we get older. So cardio absolutely helps with this. So you get your heart rate, you want to get your heart rate elevated at least 4 to 5 times per week and follow the 80-20 rule that we previously outlined on another episode. If you wear a heart rate tracker and you do strength train, you would know this, but you might be surprised if you don't. When you do strength training, like traditional sets and reps and rest, my heart rate barely scrapes zone 2. The only way I can get my heart rate up is if I do intentional cardio. And what we've talked about on this show is this 80-20 rule. You want to spend 80% of your intentional cardio time in what's called zone 2 and 20% of your intentional cardio time in zone 5, which helps with your VO2 max, which is a number one indicator of longevity. We've talked about it a ton on this show. So how do you do that? I recommend shooting for at least 90 minutes of zone 2 cardio every single week. You can spread that out over, say, 3 sessions, and you could do it after your strength training sessions or on a dedicated active recovery day. So that's your zone 2, 90 minutes. And then you want to get anywhere between 20 to 30 minutes of intentional high intensity work. And you technically and typically want to do that on a day that's kind of dedicated. And you can do that, back to say safe exercises, using something like an assault bike or a rower. And if you don't have previous injuries, you're properly warmed up and stretched, then you can look at something like sprints. You could do hill sprints, outside running, things like that, or even a fartlek run, which is an interval style run where you're pushing yourself to run hard for 2, 3, 4 minutes at a time. And then you have a back off interval as well for anywhere between 1, 2, and 3 minutes. But there's different ways to do it. Cardio is often neglected as we age. Now more than ever, it's important. You want to make sure you're getting your heart rate elevated frequently enough to have the intended adaptations and health benefits that you're looking for. And those are the fundamentals that you need to adapt and the mistakes that you need to avoid. And I just want to call out that I'm actually going to publish and build my own 40 plus training program into an Excel document that's completely free. Here, we're all about just giving free fitness information for the betterment of the audience. Nothing selling, no catch here. I just wanted to put my training out there so you can really look at and understand how you bring all of these fundamentals and protocols together into one cohesive training program. I strength train 4 times a week and I layer cardio on top of that, as well as proper warm-ups and mobility. So you can look in the episode description, scroll down in the notes. There'll be a link in there somewhere where you can access an Excel file to just kind of take that and do with it what you will. I'm also thinking about putting it on my social handles as well. You might be able to find it there. We'll see. But no conversation about training in our 40s and beyond is complete without at least touching on things like nutrition and lifestyle protocols. Each one of these concepts could be an episode unto itself. So I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire kind of advice here so that you can kind of bulletproof your life around the training itself. So first, we'll start with a hot topic today, these days, which is protein. It is 100% accurate that you need to be mindful of having adequate protein. You want to aim for 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of your goal body weight. Important there. What I mean is if you weigh 280 and you don't want to be 280, you want to be 210, you should base your protein consumption on the 210. We're not going to dive into that. This is a non-negotiable for building and maintaining muscle. As far as nutrition goes, the food that you eat matters, and it matters greatly. I recommend a whole foods style nutrition plan. And if you want to get really specific, the Mediterranean style the Mediterranean lifestyle when it comes to nutrition is my recommendation. And you absolutely want to minimize ultra processed foods. UPFs, more and more studies coming out linking UPFs to all sorts of shit that you don't want. Things like diabetes, heart disease, and even cancer. So whole foods, Mediterranean style, avoid ultra processed foods at all costs. Let's talk about alcohol. Alcohol, I mean, if you want to sabotage, your metabolism and sabotage your hormones and your health and your mental health and your well-being, go ahead and drink up. My recommendation on alcohol, complete sobriety is not for everybody. I get that. Most recommendations, most countries advise people to limit your alcohol consumption to 2 drinks per week or less if you can do it. Alcohol wreaks havoc on our health, our recovery, our sleep, our testosterone, all the things. The research is clear. Minimize your alcohol consumption especially as you get into your 40s and older. Hydration, check last week's episode. I talked all about the importance of hydration. Most people are chronically dehydrated, 75%. They don't even know it. If you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated. So make sure you're drinking adequate amounts of water and supplement with things like magnesium and electrolytes to kind of add in your hydration. That is key. As far as supplements go, I like to keep it basic. Creatine, protein, just so you can get to the protein amounts that you want. I do have a hydration supplement, fish oil, and look for some quality, protein bars if you're on the go and you're busy. But I think creatine is one that I would call out. Super important. And fish oil, of course, supports joint health, reduces inflammation, all those things. And then lastly here, sleep. Aim for at least 7 hours of quality sleep. And do look into a sleep hygiene protocol, meaning you're intentional when you turn off the screens, put down the technology, set your room temperature appropriate. 68 degrees seems to be a good spot. And you want to sleep in a darkened environment and try to go to bed and wake up around the same time as possible so you can really laser in your circadian rhythm to improve your sleep efficiency so that when you lay down, head hits the pillow, you fall asleep, and then you wake up. Because the more of a consistent sleep pattern you have, the higher quality of sleep you'll have while you're actually in bed. All right, folks, so let's wrap this up. Here's the bottom line, if I had to sum it up. Training into your 40s and beyond is not about training harder necessarily. It's just training smarter. You want to cover your basic movement patterns every single week. You can use compound movements, but you also want to focus on isolation exercises. Keep the loads moderate, keep the reps moderate, focus on progressive overload, and consistency is king. Choosing a program that is sustainable and then being motivated to actually follow it. You want to avoid extremes and fads. Don't buy into this age is just a number and throw yourself into some crazy CrossFit or high rocks type workouts unless you find joy from the community aspect of it. But also just don't assume, and this is key, don't assume that you're broken down and you can only do half-hour basic workouts just because you're 40. Know your body, trust your body, and make wise decisions about your own training, right? So you're not 25, no, but you can still get stronger. You can still build muscle and you can look and feel, you actually can look and feel better than you did in your 30s and prior decades. So little action step for you. I didn't go into a specific program, but as I mentioned earlier, I do have an Excel file linked to this episode description that you can click through and access it and check out my program. You're going to see 4 days of strength training and all of the protocols and fundamentals that I mentioned in this very episode. You can take it, make it your own, modify it, do what you want with it, share it with people, whatever. But I hope that it helps you. I'll also link to a nutrition guide there if you want more guidance around how to eat and what not to eat. I'd love to offer that free resource for you as well. As I always like to do as we close out an episode, if you found any value in today's episode, do us a favor, hit that follow button on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're listening. It's free. It takes just 2 seconds and it helps more people find the show, which is our goal. You can also leave a rating review. You can shoot us an email at contact@strongerweekly.com. If you want to ask a question, share some insights or feedback, we always love hearing from our listeners. If you know someone, maybe someone in their 40s or approaching their 40s who's been just grinding at the gym and maybe searching for the best protocols, share it with them. See if they get some help from it. We always love finding new listeners and giving them some tips, right? So that is it for this week. Thank you so much for being here.
As always, we really appreciate our listeners so much. We hope you have a great week and weekend. Stay strong, and we will see you on the other side.